The Vikings staff is really filling out. We got a defensive coordinator. We got a D-line coach. We got an O-line coach. I'm going to talk about all of that stuff. And I'm still finding Rams people to talk to about Kevin O'Connell here on the Locked On Vikings podcast.
Ooh-wee! You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Locked On Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm here at Super Week at Radio Row, having a lot of fun here, hoping to get one more show after this one from here on the floor at Radio Row. So the Vikings staff is starting to fill out. They hired a defensive line coach in Chris Rumpf off of the Bears. He's been in college a lot. They hired an offensive line coach in Chris Cooper off of the Broncos. Talked to Cody Roark about him. I'll share what he said to me. And then they also finalized the deal with Ed Donatel, which we talked about yesterday. All of this is to say the Vikings are going to a 3-4, and I offensively, I'm a little confused. So here's what I'm going to say about Chris Cooper. Chris Cooper, big-time bootleg guy. I asked Cody Roark about him. He's at the booth, like two next to me. He does Locked On Broncos, but he also does stuff for Pro Football Network. He told me that Chris Cooper is well regarded as a developer of talent, as a developmental guy, and he's not so much a scheme guy. And that's to be expected because the running backs coach is the run game coordinator in Curtis Modkins, who also comes from Denver. So we're taking a lot of people off the Broncos staff at Donatel as well. And we talked about all those guys in previous shows if you want to go listen to all the other stuff I did here at Radio Row. But what was interesting about what he said about Cooper was that Cooper is much more of a wide zone teacher. Like, he's very good at teaching people zone blocking. But with Curtis Modkins, he's not running, or at least in Denver, he didn't run purely zone blocking. And Kevin O'Connell doesn't seem to be that into running pure zone blocking. Another conversation I had earlier in the week was with Solomon Wilcots, who said, yeah, but you have Kirk Cousins. So I'm torn as to what I think they're going to do. And I actually spoke with Jourdan Rodrigue a little bit. I'll share that with you a little bit later. And she kind of said, like, look, Kevin O'Connell will tailor this to the quarterback. And the reason that they're doing things the way they're doing things in LA is because of that's like Matt Stafford's skill set. And that is like the way to maximize Matt Stafford's skill set. So how do you maximize Kirk Cousins' skill set? And I think that's a longer conversation. The instinct is to say, well, just do outside zone and bootleg and stuff. But also in the like meta of the NFL, and this kind of takes me to the defensive side, it's different. And wide zone bootleg isn't as good as it was 2-3 years ago. It's just everybody has a front that is meant to beat zone blocking. And so you have to have something else, something multiple, but the outside zone bootleg thing, if you're going to go away from it, then you're also going away from what your quarterback is best at. And there's a little bit of a tug of war there. Of course, you could change quarterbacks, and that's a different conversation, I guess. But if we work under the assumption that Kevin O'Connell is not going to get rid of Kirk Cousins, which is what's been reported so far, then we kind of have to solve this tug of war. And here's what I think is going to end up happening. Is probably a ratio that's not that far off from what the Broncos did with Curtis Modkins over there and now Chris Cooper. That they ran like 65%, like 2/3 of their game was wide zone. And so same with the Rams. So it's going to be some wide zone, but you're going to move away from it often enough to be multiple to, take advantage of fronts that are super overcommitted to stopping the wide zone. And then, you can, build things out from there. But there's another thing with Kirk Cousins in terms of rhythm, and he's never really been in this offense because he's such a good play-action guy, you don't think to. But what about the 3-step drop, quick game, kind of get him into the rhythm of the game and see if that can make Kirk Cousins loosen up a little bit? And that's going to be the problem for Kevin O'Connell. So coming up, I talked to Jourdan Rodrigue. She covers the Rams for The Athletic, and she had a lot of cool stuff to say about Kevin O'Connell. She kind of talked me into him a little bit with the way that she described how Kevin O'Connell will approach the quarterback position. And we talked a whole bunch about that. So we're going to get into that. But first, Get Upside is a cool app that you should definitely download. It's a free app, Google Play, App Store, that saves you money at the pump. You can save 25 cents or more a gallon if you enter promo code TOUCHDOWN with the Get Upside app. It's really easy to use. You just download it. It'll tell you what gas stations are around you that are participating. And then you go there, fill up like you normally would. They might ask you for a picture of the receipt, and then it just gives you cash back, 25 cents a gallon or more, especially if you entered the promo code touchdown. So go do that with the Get Upside app. Start saving money. That can really add up over time. You can deposit it however you want, direct deposit into your bank, or like whatever with Google Play, Amazon gift card, whatever. So go to the Google Play App Store, download Get Upside, use promo code touchdown, and start saving money. I also want to talk to you about the joy of betting Christmas. That is the Super Bowl, and where better to bet than betonline.net. BetOnline is a great place to go and gamble on weird stuff. You can do the regular prop bets, like how many yards will Joe Burrow throw for, or what's Cooper Kupp going to get, or like Cam Akers or whatever. Or you can bet on stuff like what kind of headwear will Eminem wear at the Super Bowl. Plus 200 on the hood. I like those odds. What color will the Gatorade be? That kind of fun. So I love Super Bowl prop bets. It's so much fun. So go to BetOnline and go sign up and bet on anything you want to bet on, and any other sports too, or whatever. And you can go do that. It rules. Go to BetOnline, where the game starts. Thanks again so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day. Of course, we are here at Super Week, and I had a bunch of really cool conversations. You should check out the Locked On NFL podcast. I had a bunch of cool conversations today. I talked to Icky Woods, talked to Pac-Man Jones. I talked to Mina earlier, but let's do this conversation with Jourdan Rodrigue. Yep, yeah, I started. All right. All right, here at Radio Row on Super Week with Jourdan Rodrigue, who covers the Rams for The Athletic. Thanks for coming and taking a couple minutes to talk about Kevin O'Connell with me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Kevin's a great guy. I'm excited for Vikings fans. I think they're really going to like him.
Good. Okay, so my question is, why don't I know anything about this guy?
That's a fair question.
He's like a ghost.
Yeah, and I think, too, a lot of times when you get into, hiring and coaching cycles and things like that, you start to see who's kind of hidden away, right? Or who coaches are maybe making an effort to retain for as long as they could. And we saw Sean McVay block Kevin O'Connell from interviewing or even, having opportunities because he wanted to finally keep a coordinator. I mean, God forbid, right? One of these years. And Kevin was certainly in that space where wanted continuity, wanted to keep him in the building. So you kind of, you don't hear a lot about him, but what you do hear about him is from players, from support staff, from other coaches. So he's very well known in the Rams sort of stratosphere, but I think externally he did seem to sort of come out of nowhere. I think after he left Washington, he also was a name at that point in terms of the cycles that were happening at that time after the job that he did, taking over sort of in those circumstances at the end of his time there.
Yeah.
And then was really, really popular for that. Sean McVay scooped him up and sort of shut him away a little bit.
Yeah, it seemed like in Washington, everybody hated everything about Washington except Kevin O'Connell. He's cool.
Right.
And
he has that effect on people. Yeah.
and then he comes to LA, and so this is the first time he worked with McVay is here, right? They didn't meet up anywhere else, right?
They knew each other through some quarterback collective events and things like that.
But they never worked on the same staff.
Right, yeah. So this was kind of a new partnership. McVay had often promoted guys he had worked with before and guys who were on like his original staff with him in Washington. And with Kevin, he just really appreciated his ideas, and he really appreciated the sort of mentality and sort of the aura that he kind of brings.
Okay.
He's very complimentary with an E, not an I, in terms of who McVay is and sort of that hyper-focused, hyper-agitated intensity that sometimes comes out of him. And you need balance as well, and especially in your quarterback's room. You need somebody, and this is what Sean saw in Kevin, you need somebody who can really work with and develop your quarterbacks, who knows exactly what they want from the quarterbacks, who is letting the coach be the CEO of the team. And when after Sean McVay lost LaFleur and then tried coordinating the offense by himself for a year and then also running the team, he found that it was not a good situation for him. He needed to step back a little bit and have somebody else in the room making those decisions and having that autonomy.
Got it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the quarterback because Matt Stafford loves Kevin O'Connell. What does he say when he's asked about this? What is the thing he talks about O'Connell that is so impressive to him?
What was striking to me is that Matthew Stafford, who is a veteran quarterback, who, by the way, Kevin O'Connell was a backup for at one point.
That's right.
Which is insane to me.
Yeah.
Everyone's getting younger and younger, but we just get older, right?
Kellen Moore's everywhere.
I know, and so he was he's known him for a long time, and he actually, the thing that was the most telling that he said was that he couldn't have worked his way into this offense. He couldn't be doing what they're doing right now without Kevin O'Connell onboarding him into it. You'd see it after practice every day. Kevin O'Connell, Robert Woods, before he got hurt, Cooper Kupp, and Matthew Stafford, they would huddle together on the practice field. Everyone else would go inside and hit the showers. Those guys would be on the field 15, 20, 30 minutes after practice, just talking, diagramming things. I'm pretty sure I even saw Matthew Stafford draw something in the dirt at one point.
The legend.
It really is, it's one of those things where it was such a collaborative approach, and Sean McVay would sort of orbit around, come in and work on some things and evolve and troubleshoot, but then also walk out and let those guys do their thing and work into that design and really move this offense forward. And I think Kevin O'Connell's ideas, a lot of those things in collaboration with Matthew, are why you saw Sean McVay's system that everybody wants move forward and evolve. They're doing a lot. They're spreading the field out
so
a lot
different,
wider. They're doing a lot more drop back stuff. You're seeing empty, which you never saw before with Sean McVay. And they're taking risks that are attuned to the quarterback. Now, I wouldn't say that it would be specifically the same in Minnesota at the moment.
Right, like if they because there was a weird thing they almost traded for Kirk Cousins when they were trying to do the Stafford trade, like that. If that had happened in that universe, it would probably not an empty a whole bunch. Is that?
I just think, it's what the quarterback can do or
right,
likes
and that's
to
like
do,
perfect for Stafford.
Yeah, and Stafford likes to do those things. He likes being in the gun. He likes drop back stuff. He loves empty. And the Rams wanted to spread the field wider and introduce some of those concepts, along with some of that really steady rhythmic play action that they do, along with some of those layers that they set up in the passing game and the intermediate and short areas of the field, the catch and run plays, the screens, the motions. But adding that because Matthew Stafford likes to be aggressive in that way, and I think that's a lot of Kevin O'Connell because he is very attuned to what the quarterback wants, what he can do, and not asking the quarterback to be outside of himself. So it's going to look different for every quarterback he coaches.
Sure, that's the point. Yeah,
that's
you're tailoring
it.
Yeah,
that is the point.
So I guess my biggest concern, with Kevin O'Connell is, so he's such a quarterback guy. He was a quarterback. He's worked with quarterbacks. He tailors everything around the quarterback. And it's quarterback. It's the most important position in sports. But as head coach, you like what Sean McVay struggled with, you have to be the CEO of the whole team. So what about other players? How do they talk about Kevin O'Connell? Do you ever get a quote from a defensive guy that's like, yeah, I've noticed him, or I like his aura, or whatever? Or is he really just super honed in on the quarterback right now?
Well, he's in those meetings. That's something that a lot of people don't know about Kevin. He and Jonathan Cooley on the Rams staff, one of the defensive backs coaches, assistant secondary coach, they're really close friends, and they swap notes. They talk to each other about different concepts and different types of things, and that's something that I think is really underrated that you're starting to see more of in the NFL.
Yeah.
But coaches who reach across the room, connect across the room in that way, are taking extra time to be in that space, to put their heads in those rooms and in those concepts on the other side of the ball. And you did see them collaborating and talking through a lot of things because why wouldn't you? It's helpful. If you're trying to figure out how defenses are going to attack you, should you not talk to a defensive coach? And so I think that was something that I noticed early on in his tenure. He made a lot of friendships in that building. He has a lot of friendships around the league, offensive and defensive coaches. I do think that one of his challenges will be separating himself enough from the quarterback room.
Right.
Designing and being a pulse in there and all of that, great, fine. But also separating himself enough from that space in order to run the team as a whole and execute a plan, because one of the biggest things that he learned from Sean McVay was coming in and explaining why everything from the draft, free agency, how everything aligned specifically to the scheme that they were going to run, how all of the pieces fit together in complementary ways, how all of the traits fit together in complementary ways, how all of the layers stack out and what they look like pre-snap, at snap, post-snap, and what the players have to do and what kinds of players you need to do that. It's a lot. So he needs to be able to separate himself from just, yes, I'm a quarterback guy, yes, I'm an offensive guy, take a step back further. And so that's where, his staffing becomes really, really important, bringing guys in who he trusts and also guys who have a variety of experience that he connects with on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, and all of the hires they've had so far, except they just, hired Chris Cooper from the Broncos, who's a pretty young guy for an O-line coach, but they got Ed Donatel, 65 years old, like all these other old guys. There was one name you mentioned in there, though, speaking of his staff, Cooley. Now, I know you've mentioned that before as a possible name to watch, and obviously we won't hear anything because they got kind of something more important to deal with. But do you think that that's a name that he might go try to tap for D-backs coach or passing game coordinator defensively or something like that?
I would be surprised if he weren't going to try.
Okay.
I don't know if he will be successful.
Gotcha.
Because, again, Cooley is very, very valuable in the Rams building, and he's one of the Brandon Staley holdovers that helps run that defense that keeps modernizing and keeps sort of pushing this league in a new direction. So the Rams definitely want to keep a hold of him now that they've lost Brandon and other Staley assistants they're also losing Ejiro Evero to the Broncos. So they definitely want to try to keep Jonathan Cooley in place, but he and Kevin O'Connell, they are very close. They, like I said, they collaborate a lot, and they get each other. It's sort of that unspoken communication, and so I would imagine he would be something who we would at least inquire about strongly in terms of bringing him.
Make a push.
Yeah.
But that's something the Rams theoretically could block, right?
Sure, yeah. They could, I mean, and then also, if they decide to promote Jonathan or something, there's spots that are going to be open.
Always, because it's the Rams.
Right, yeah. It's a revolving door over there, man, I tell you what.
But for the right reason.
Yeah.
Hence all the Rams pictures over here at the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Jourdan, thank you so much for giving me some insight. You made me more excited about Kevin O'Connell. My listeners know I'm a hater. So you talked me into it a little bit.
That's all right. I mean, he's got a lot to prove. I think it's okay to be skeptical. He has a lot to prove, and it's a tough thing to actually sustain it and sort of build in the way that he's going to want to build. So he's got a lot to prove, but I also think he's kind of has the demeanor to be able to sort of roll with some of the punches he will face probably early on.
We'll see what we're talking about this time next year. Jourdan, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
So this is the last time we're going to talk before the Super Bowl, so I do want to preview that a little bit with you as well. It's the Super Bowl. Come on, I'm here. So we're going to talk about that. Today's episode is brought to you by Get Upside. Download the free Get Upside app. Use promo code Touchdown to get 25 cents per gallon or more cash back on your first tank. Also, big thanks to Built Bar, best tasting protein bar on the planet. Built Bar is covered in 100% chocolate. It is like 130 calories, like 4 grams of sugar. It ain't that bad. Compare that to a regular candy bar that it tastes like. That's like 300 calories and like 30 grams of sugar. It's disgusting. But you can trick your little lizard brain into thinking you're eating a candy bar, satisfy that late night craving. It happens to the best of us. And then go reach for a Built Bar instead, and you will satisfy that craving, but you won't have to feel like crap about it. Won't knock you off the wagon. I've been knocked off the wagon. I tried really hard this year, y'all. It didn't work. But hey, I can still reach for a Built Bar and not feel too bad about it. So head on over to Built Bar and get whatever flavor you like. They've got chocolate caramel, chocolate peanut butter, chocolate coconut, all sorts of awesome stuff. So head on over to Built.com and enter promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15, and you can get 15% off of your order. That's promo code LOCKED15, all one word, at Built.com. All right, look, it's the Super Bowl, and it's on Sunday. Rams, Bengals. We got to talk a little bit about it. So, luckily, we are at the Super Bowl with all of the rest of Locked On Rams and Bengals are here. Of course, talked to Locked On Rams yesterday. So I just want to preview the Super Bowl with you a little bit. I know it's not Vikingsy, but let's have a little fun. The Super Bowl's coming up, so we're going to talk about it just a little bit.
We are here in LA, Radio Row for Super Bowl 56, Rams and Bengals. I'm here, former Super Bowl champion Marshall Faulk. So when you look at the way the NFL is now versus when you played, the running back position is been, I don't want to say marginalized, but it's not the same as it was. But at the same time, you got to be able to do more, which was your thing. So when you look at it, are you going, hey, this would be fun? Or what is your perception of how the league has changed?
Well, no, I mean, you guys have been, they show you guys the shiny object and you buy into it. Passing league, they're giving quarterbacks $300 million, and you're like, oh my God, like you have to do this. But just pay attention to when you get to the playoffs, and you start asking guys, as you're going to ask me, like, hey, what are some of the keys to the game? They're going to tell you the team that run the ball the best. When you think about Green Bay, San Francisco, Green Bay couldn't run the football. Right. Or if they could have ran the football, they controlled the clock, that game would have been over. Rams, 49ers couldn't run the football. The Rams could. When the games matter, it's controlling the line of scrimmage and running the football. So I'll buy into it. I'll buy into it. Last year, Tom Brady had a great game, but Leonard Fournette, they ran the ball. They dominated the line of scrimmage. So pay attention to it. We are relevant, although they try to, maybe find 2 or 3 guys to get the job done, and they might not be a guy that's a showcase piece, but running the football is a huge part of this game, and you have to control the clock.
Back at Super Bowl Radio Row ahead of Bengals-Rams Super Bowl 56 with my man, Andrew Hawkins. And let's start with this.
Uh-huh.
How the hell did the Bengals get here? That was the first thing you said. Can you believe they're here? They're here. They're playing in the Super Bowl.
It's wild, man. It's exciting. I was a Bengals fan as a kid when we were doing 2-win, 3-win seasons.
Yeah.
The playoffs was like a Super Bowl to me.
Yeah.
You know, like getting to play for the Bengals in a playoff game was like, yeah, I'm good. I don't care what happens after this. That's a dream come true because I remember praying for winning seasons for Cincinnati, you know? And so to see them where they are now, I don't know if my mind, even as a player, was like, this is a real possibility. It was like always step one, let's get to the playoffs. And we got there and it was like, oh, well, let's try to get a win, right? And so I think that even them busting through, if they only won one game this season with this team, it would have been a massive success for the franchise. If they would have just beat Tennessee, oh my gosh, can you imagine?
Yep.
To win the AFC Championship, and that's the thing about this game. Like, I don't want to say they're on house money because they really have an opportunity to win, but I mean, this is a season Bengals fans, no matter what happens from here on out, will talk about for the rest of their lives, right? Like, this is a part of that history, and that's really cool to witness.
Because it's so unexpected.
Exactly.
So unexpected.
Exactly.
And there's beauty in that. What went through your mind after they beat the Raiders?
Uh-huh.
Jermaine Pratt catches the interception.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow's like, we're not going to celebrate. This is what we expect. This is the standard, given the history that you know very well.
I mean, I think that is there's no more perfect illustration about who Joe Burrow is and why he's such a special player, because it's very easy to go into these games or situations and say, hey, we're just happy to be here. We're going to give it our best and see what happens. No, like Joe Burrow, he's that confident. He really is that kind of guy. Like, even, I interviewed him at the Combine before he was drafted, and I remember meeting him, and I interviewed all the quarterbacks, and he stuck out like even from all the pack, just his confidence, you feel it. And it's not a fake bravado. It's not trying to convince you he's confident. You can just see, like, he knows his place in the world. And, it's like you could tell his parents did a great job of putting him. He has a confidence that is even uncommon just by human standards, not even just NFL players. And I remember seeing Darren Simmons at the Combine. And I was like, hey, trying to tip his hat one way or the other. I'm like, I don't know what you guys plan to do, but I don't know if I've ever seen a rookie coming in who could probably command a following the way Joe Burrow could do in a locker room.
It's the Locked On NFL podcast in Los Angeles, the site of Super Bowl 56, Cincinnati Bengals, Los Angeles Rams. Joining us now, one of the great comeback stories, post-career, Ryan Leaf, of course, the host of the Bust podcast. Ryan, thanks for joining us, man.
You bet. My pleasure to be here.
What's more impressive to you, the quick run to the Super Bowl like Joe Burrow or Matthew Stafford?
I think they're both really impressive, but what Joe Burrow has been able to do, right? No one expected this. This was a 4-win team from a year ago.
Yeah.
They were picking first overall 2 years ago, right? And Joe Burrow gets taken out of his first season with a knee injury. So no one expected that at all, except for Joe and everybody in that locker room, I think. On the other side of things, I think when you go out and trade for somebody like Matthew Stafford, there was a ton of expectation. So I don't know sometimes whether it's harder to do what no one expects you to do or what everybody expects you to do. Because even in this game, there's no expectation for Joe Burrow and Cincinnati to win the game. It's all on the LA Rams and what they did and what they mortgaged and what they put into winning a championship. Because you could argue if they do not win a championship on Sunday, this season will be considered a failure in the eyes of a lot of people.
Yeah, it's a zero-sum games sometimes, especially with the NFL where it is. Lessons you learned when you see a not cocky, that's the wrong word, confident kid like Joe Burrow. Do you kind of get scared? Do you ever hesitate when you look at a guy with that high of confidence?
No, I think most guys have that. Even I had it, but you have to go back it up with your play, and he's definitely done that. So I think there is fear in the eyes of people when they're facing Patrick Mahomes, when they're facing Josh Allen, when they're definitely facing Lamar Jackson, and they have that when they face Joe Burrow. When you added Jamar Chase to the mix, that combo made for a very difficult night's sleep for defensive coordinators all over the NFL.
Yeah.
I hope you all enjoy the game. We will talk on Monday. With any luck, I'll do one more episode from here on Radio Row that I can give to you then. If not, whatever. We'll talk about whatever happens over the weekend. I'm sure there's going to be lots of stuff. Kevin O'Connell will be officially announced, and all the other hires will be officially announced. So I'm sure we'll know the rest of the staff. We'll pick up all those pieces then. I will see you all next week, and as always, Skull.